Let's go. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Conversations Cafe. This is a remix. Welcome, everyone, to a little bit of a feedback. Welcome to Conversations Cafe. This is April 8th, and we are here for the second iteration of What Gives You Hope. I'm Carl Evans, Director of Operations at Hope for the Day, and I'm so glad for you to join us tonight. We have a great lineup of guests with us, and this April, in our current reality, we've been focusing on talking about ways and efforts to share self-expression and celebrate giving us hope. And we have a great team of folks here who are going to be showing some of their passions and interests. And as always, we hope to continue the conversation on our mental health and taking care and finding hope and connecting our communities with that hope in different ways. So not going to have too much of a lead in or anything like that. I thought it would be good to just jump right into it. And our first guest tonight is really joining us from the front lines here in a way. Very talented individual who's a friend of the Hope for the Day family and has actually been a guest on our live recorded podcasts of Conversations Cafe before, Megan Tress is going to be our first guest. So we'd like to introduce Megan, make sure her video starts up real quick. And there you are. Hey, Megan. Great to have you on.
Hey.
So, first of all, thank you for joining us tonight.
Happy to be here.
And Megan, why don't you give us a little bit of your background and where you're coming from?
Sure. Well, I'm coming to you tonight from my house in Logan Square, very close to Sip of Hope that is now closed, as is everything. But I am a nurse practitioner. I work for PCC Community Wellness. And I'm also very pregnant right now. So I advocated to work on our organization's hotline to answer questions about the virus and about just anything and everything related to it. So far we have fielded over 1,400 calls as a group, not myself alone, but we have really talked to a lot of people and have heard personally a lot of stories, obviously, and have been able to help a lot of people stay out of the ER and stay home, which feels really important right now in a time where the hospital can also be really scary. And I have experience working as a floor nurse, obviously not during these times, but from before. So I know a lot about what it's like to be in the hospital, and also know what it's been like to work in a clinic that went from all in-person visits to pretty much 80% 80 to 90% telehealth visits in a matter of days. So yeah, it's a new reality. It's a new world.
And that's such a monstrous undertaking. And, I think it's been said in other places, but both by extension, thank you for your commitment and your work, and obviously to the greater family at PCC. Could you tell us a little bit about, where is that located?
Yeah, so PCC is a community health network. If you're joining us from Chicago, it's similar to a bunch of other networks, although sometimes it's just not well known, but it's similar to places like Erie and Miles Square and Access. So we serve mostly people who are uninsured, on public aid and private insurance, all of the above. We have right now we're down. We've really limited the amount of in-person clinics, but we have, I believe, 13 clinics that are mostly on the west and northwest side. So I am based at one in Steinmetz High School. So that's like near Elmwood Park. And then we're kind of in the Austin, sort of into Oak Park neighborhood with like a loose affiliation with West Suburban Hospital. So that general vicinity. There's also one in Norwegian Hospital, so kind of in that whole area. But we have a ton of family medicine providers. So we see all lifespan doctors, nurse practitioners. There's providers that deliver babies. There's midwives that deliver babies in a birth center, which has been very popular these days. And we also have behavioral health. So we have psychiatric nurse practitioners, and we have pretty big staff of behavioral health therapists who have also been doing telemedicine during this time. So that's a cool thing to be able to offer to the general public. And it's something that we're offering to people who have never been to PCC before, which is really cool. I'm really proud to be a part of that team.
Thank you for sharing all that. What's one of the key reasons we wanted to have you on, as one of our initial guests here today, because it's really important, as we're facing our current realities, that we make sure people understand, there's still resources available out there, both for obviously dealing with current, with the current, sort of topic of the day, but also it's important for people to recognize that like there's health concerns and conditions and realities that folks still need ongoing treatment for, or should seek support for. And aside from the, sort of amazing job and the burden that the whole medical community and support and service communities have had to step up for, it's also important for people to recognize that there were folks who were needing help and needing treatment and needing support, long before we were sort of told to put into isolation and things like that. And it's important because Hope for the Day, for instance, has a tool. It's the resource compass. And if you go to hftd.org, right where you can click to find help, you're going to see something where when you type in your zip code, regardless of where you are in the United States, it's not just going to show you resources for mental health services, it's going to show you access to services that are also part of the quality of life, which is part of your mental health, which is anything from medical to physical to food supplements to financial supports for loss of jobs or things like that. And it's just so important to hear voices such as yours, Megan, someone who's we're all close to this current reality, but getting a perspective and insight from you is just as important. And people are always.
And the best thing that could happen out of this for PCC would be that we make connections with new patients as well. So, calling this hotline number, which we will definitely distribute, calling this hotline number is something that you can do even if what you're really seeking is to get treatment for a pre-existing medical condition. Maybe you haven't seen a doctor in a while. Maybe you've been ignoring something with your health or mental health, and hopefully it's sooner rather than later. Although I don't want to be unrealistic about the timeline. It could be a while, but hopefully in the future we'll be doing, then we'll be following up as your provider, and we have space for new patients. So the hotline is focused on answering questions specifically related to the virus, but we are definitely scheduling appointments with new patients to address chronic medical issues, diabetes, asthma. And then we're also able to, I don't want to guarantee within one day, but I would say within 1 to 2 days, we can get contact with a behavioral health provider for you. And then that person can schedule follow-up with you as well. And you don't have to have insurance. Pretty much everything's getting waived right now, but I don't want to say if it's a chronic medical issue. I think there may be some nominal fee, but it will be very low. And it is not something that's going to be now anyways. So it's just a way maybe to connect with a healthcare organization that you haven't been able to do, or maybe you haven't had the time. It's really, really hard to find a provider. But a lot of us have a lot more time on our hands right now. So if you have some time, call this hotline. There's a provider, you talk directly to a provider. So either a nurse practitioner, possibly a nurse practitioner, nurse, or a physician. So you can get a lot of questions answered right away. You can get medications refilled. We'll help you get medications at a price that's affordable for you. It's a great service, and it's a great team to be connected into.
And then that resource number, that hotline number is 773-295-3347. And we'll have that listed in our resources sort of as we drop this video and placed in other places aside from just the resource compass. So again, thank you so much, Megan, for joining us. And we're going to ask you to stick around as we go into our other guests. So thank you, Megan Tress.
I will say one more thing, the masks. So you should hopefully have already learned that, and I'm not doing this properly. If you would actually be doing this, you would wash your hands. It wouldn't be on you. You'd wash your hands and then you'd put your mask on, and it wouldn't be stylishly around your neck. But it is really important that we're all wearing masks now when we're out in public. And I wanted to promo this one a little bit because this comes from Wolf Bait, which is a store in Logan Square. That small business is obviously really suffering, as all small businesses are. But if you make a donation by buying a gift card to Wolf Bait, they will send you a mask that is made from really cool fabric for free as part of your kind of donation to sustain their business. But also, I just want to shout out the owner, Shirley, for organizing to get physicians, people that we know that are living in shelters, and lots of other people in the community. She's organized seamstresses all over to make masks, and it's just really incredible to see what people are stepping up and doing these days. And I hope that's something that continues beyond this. But if you need a mask, it's a great way to get one and support a local business and in part of it is part of it.
And you know what? Before we jump into our next guest, I actually, you know, silly me, but let's just talk about that really quickly. Is the mask thing? I personally have a question about that too. Like, you know, does does a mask work? What is the point of a mask? You know, with the way things like the virus spread, is it something where like just walking down the street, it's good to have a mask on, or what is your thoughts on that? You know, as best as you could answer that.
So the purpose of the mask in a lot of ways, and sometimes you could say the purpose of a vaccine is often, it's definitely to protect you, the wearer or the receiver of the vaccine, but it's also to protect everyone else. And we know that this virus is spread predominantly through respiratory particles that come out of our nose or our mouth. Don't really come out of our eyes, but can enter through our eyes. So it's awesome to wear a mask and glasses or sunglasses or something to keep your eyes covered. But the really big thing about wearing the mask is that unfortunately the virus can spread while someone is asymptomatic. So you could have no idea that you have the virus and you could be shedding it. And that's kind of why it's such a big issue. And that incubation period can last up to 14 days. So you might not know that you were exposed. Hopefully you don't ever have severe symptoms. But if you're going to any place where you're going to be likely within 6 feet of someone else, this is an added way to say, like, I'm going to keep my respiratory secretions to myself. And also the real deal with it is that once you put it on before you leave your house, you're not supposed to adjust it at all unless you're sanitizing or washing your hands before you take it off, and then sanitizing and washing your hands before you put it on. It also just encourages you to not touch your face. I'm sure people have realized how much we touch our faces, and I feel like it's probably like a psychological research thing that we could be like put in front of a camera and told don't touch your face, and we'd all be touching our faces.
I'm fighting a nose. So
all the time. So yeah, it's just a way to remind yourself. And I think that's something about gloves too. It's hard to get your hands on a pair of gloves, but it's something about gloves too. Like you just wouldn't touch your face if you had plastic gloves on, probably. You're just like, oh, this is weird. There's stuff on there. So it's kind of like a hint and a reminder, but the mask it's about you, but it's about everyone else. And the one anecdote I will give is just people who are essential workers who are working in big box stores like Target, Walmart, all the grocery stores. They're at extremely high risk because they're coming into so many contacts with us, or so many public contacts every day. So like think of it as doing service to them if you're going into a store. And then on the flip side, obviously, if one of us is infecting that person then has contact with all these other people. So it is really a big recommendation. These masks, even though they're just 100% cotton, they'll filter up to 80% of all particles. So they're really, and I don't know why the CDC didn't make it a recommendation sooner, but as of Friday, it was a recommendation nationally that we all be wearing masks when we know we're going to interact. If you're going on a walk by yourself, you don't have to wear it. But if you're going to be going, like interacting with another human that you haven't been living on quarantine with, then you should wear it.
Well, that's great. And I think that's fantastic. And, you know, we didn't necessarily put a note to talk about that, but I think just as a closeout for this part, as we go into some of our other guests, you know, heck, we see some folks wondering what they can do with their time and energies. And that, you know, if you've seen it online anywhere, people sort of making masks or doing, it wouldn't hurt anyone if people are looking for or wondering how they can use their creative spirits, investigating how maybe you could contribute to the mask making or donating of materials to people who are making masks. Something to Google. We don't have that like offhand right this second, but since we brought it up, I'm just throwing that out there. So thank you so much, Megan.
And I will give you a link to a video I made about how to make a mask from a t-shirt. 2 masks from 1 t-shirt.
So there you go. So we'll put that into our content as well. And I think for our Chicago oriented folks or geographic folks, our magic Mike put up a little bit of the resource information, which we'll also have in other places. So thank you again, Megan. Obviously, you're going to stick around as we move over to our next guest. He's a talented musician. He's an educational instructor, or he donates his time to doing educational instruction with Hope for the Day, and a very talented performing musician as well. His name is Aaron Coleman, and he's coming to us live from his crib as well. Let me make sure his video is live and we can hear him. Mr. Aaron Coleman, how are you doing?
I am awesome. Thank you for asking. How are you? How are you?
Hey, thanks for joining us, Aaron.
Thank you for having me. It's awesome.
Yeah, so, just how are you adjusting to current realities, my good man?
That's a good question. I guess since I'm a musician, I play more music. I'm a drummer and a bass player, so I've been playing a lot of guitar lately. Trying to play a little bit more keyboards, just trying to play music. And trying to read a little bit more, and just reaching out to more people, just to say what's up, see how people are doing, and keep that conversation going, keep talking, So that's pretty much what I'm doing right now.
And that's one of the reasons, we were hyped to sort of put you together as a guest, is because you work at a place called Chicago Music Exchange.
I do.
A constantly performing musician, and so we've heard it in different sort of ways, but sort of just touching on, what's it been like inside of this music community, without the access to the live shows, which is lifeblood for a lot of people, paying the bills and things like that. What's been the sort of, how are you sort of staying sane and sort of, adjusting or adapting to that as a professional?
Like I said, still just like trying to play, as much as I can just at home. It's different when you go from, having a schedule where you're, pretty much constantly, you're working Monday through Friday. You leave work Friday and you're gone for the rest of the weekend playing shows, and that's you're every week, you're every month, and then to have that just stop is it was different. It was definitely not easy to get used to. I mean, especially since pretty much all of the groups I'm in 3 different projects and that are constantly playing. And you just come out of the holiday season, which is kind of like your break. Your downtime, you relax. People don't like to travel as much when it's winter. And then all your shows start usually picking up again like late February, early March, which is pretty much when all of this took off and just stopped. So it's definitely different. For me, just you're almost like on that routine. You're so used to not being home and playing music, especially when you've done that pretty much, the majority of your life. And when that stops, it's like, oh, okay, what's going on, I guess I just been able to deal with it, just being able to be at home and just playing music, just keep playing, I've got a lot of friends that, have the same kind of, work schedule as me, or, they might be on another level of that where they're playing a lot more, or they're on tours a lot more, and, for them, that's crazy because, that's their livelihood, the front of house managers, the techs, what I mean? bus drivers, you know, and, you know, especially the bands, you know, like that's pretty, you know, how we make a living. So, you know, for this to happen the way it did, it's definitely been, you know, a learning thing, you know, and just getting adjusted to it, and, you know, and trying to fill your time, you know, and
What have been some of like the biggest tools you found to sort of keep your spirits up, keep you like, you know, play music, sure, but like, has that been a bit of like, you know, one of the things that we've talked about with folks, and I'd be interested to know from your perspective, is this whole thing about, you know, is there a creative spark during this time? Does this kind of like take you to a place where maybe like you want, like it gives you an opportunity to let your head go somewhere creatively, or is this kind of a place where maybe it's more about like the playing of the music is kind of playing out the feelings you're experiencing right now?
yeah,
So get out, right? You know, like what's it been for you?
I mean, it's a little of both, to be honest with you, you know, as far as like that creative spark, you know, like, I try and write as much as I can, but I'll be honest with you, like the last probably 3 to 6 months, it's been hard to come up with like ideas or riffs, you know. And now that, you know, the situation has happened to us all, you know what I mean? Like I guess that's my spark, you know, which is kind of weird. You know, something to this magnitude just kind of shakes everything. That for me, that was kind of my spark. As far as that goes. And then like, I don't know, the other part of that is like, I sing a lot. Like I walk a lot by myself, you know, I still take public transit to work, you know, and I ride my skateboard a lot. So I'm constantly listening to music. So now I just sing out loud, you know, who cares? Singing along to a song out loud, if that's going to make me happy, then that's what I'm going to do, you know? And so like, I've definitely been kind of doing that, you know, the last few weeks. And, you know, it's cool, you know, it makes me happy, you know, just walking down the street, spitting Biggie verses out loud, you know, or, you know, there's like, you know, a mom walking her kids by and stroller, and I'm singing No Effect songs, you know, trying to say not, you know, the bad things or whatever. But, you know, that's kind of what makes me smile, you know, it makes me happy, you know, and, you know.
So you were talking about with your 3 projects that you're involved in. What are those 3 projects?
Mason's Case, The Locals, and COVERGIRLS.
And what's those sort of genres, you know?
Mason's Case is pretty much like a alternative garage rock band, I guess. The Locals, we're also like a 3-piece rock band. I guess pop alternative, whatever. Great tunes, both groups. And then COVERGIRLS is a cover band that I play with. It's like a 90s fronted pop girl cover band. We have 2 girls that front the band that are amazing, Asha and Steph, and then myself and 2 other buddies, Adam and Andrew. We back them up. So that's the 3. I do have to give an honorable mention to my punk band, Coke Dick Motorcycle Awesome. We just had a reunion show last month. It was like our first show in like 8 years. Yes, the name says it all.
You know, and one of the reasons why I'm asking is just sort of for the groups that you're actively active in, you know, has there been a rehearsal process, a practicing process, or if folks have sort of, you know, went dormant for a while?
I mean, we're all just kind of chilling out, you know. You know, we're being told to stay home, so we stay home. You know, we don't leave unless we have to, you know, go to work or go get groceries. You know, like we're just staying at home. Everybody's, you know, doing their homework on their own, playing shows or playing songs, I guess, practicing on their own. There's no shows to really prepare for, so it's like everybody just hang out at home, just, you know, do what we're told and let this hopefully all blow over soon, you know?
Cool, man. And I guess, you know, one of the last couple of things I wanted to touch on really quickly, just always important to hear from like the creative side. And we have another guest on who's going to be sharing, you know, that passions intersect with hip hop. But we're always curious, and, you know, cats like you know, who are righteous players and super talented. One of the big things that we're, you know, we and me specifically are very interested in is, you know, we talk about sort of mental health at Hope of the Day, introducing this idea of the soda bottle. And it can fill up with pressure and sort of, you know, explode. And we're always trying to do things to valve that pressure out. And that's the simplest idiot-proof way of explaining mental health, is that, you know, there's pressures that we can valve on our own. There's pressures that we can't, you know, that sort of build up, and they're bigger than the tools we have to take care of. And I think one of the things that I'd like to know about is just from your perspective and with everything that you're sort of connected in, what have you found is sort of like been the most challenging thing about like where we are right now, you know, that isolation thing? And then also, what's been like your biggest valve? Like maybe playing music, but I think it would be useful, you know, it's one thing to say playing music, but maybe it's like playing something really loud or playing something really aggressive, or playing like going back to like your favorite pieces, things like that. You know what I'm saying? So like what's kind of like been a big pressure build for you, and what's sort of been like your best valve, you know, because I kind of assume it's gonna be playing music, right? But like what's been your best valve?
Truly. But at the same time, probably, you know, I'm gonna have to say talking to people. If that makes any sense, I guess. I don't know. Does it? Does that make sense? Just talking to people? No?
You know, making the connection actually works. You know, I jumped the gun by saying, you know, well, it's music, but I think I think it's completely underappreciated, just the power of the conversation. And maybe this is something we're learning right now through this sort of, you know, not forced, but sort of complied isolation experiences, that just maybe how much we take for granted the power of talking.
Yeah, because I mean, and Mike can tell you, or, you know, anyone watching this or whatever, I'm usually the dude that will just like randomly pick up the phone and just be like, hey, what's up? How's it going? You know? But even more so with everything that's going on, that's kind of like a thing for me, especially like living alone, you know? Like for the most part, I don't mind living alone, you know? But then when you're putting into the situation where it's like isolation, it's like, you know, you got to talk to somebody, you know? So it's like, you know, it's just a lot of phone calls, a lot of FaceTiming. You know what I mean? You can't, you know, I have to be doing something. You know, if I'm not playing music or walking or skating, like the other part is just talking to people. You know, because you know you talking, you know, it keeps your mind off of things for one, and then two, that other person that you're talking to, that's helping them keep things, you know, off their mind. You know what I mean? So you guys can kind of like feed off that and bounce off each other, you know? And who knows, that person, you know, might really need to talk, but, you know, people don't talk anymore. You know, it's all texting or, you know, Snapchatting or whatever is going on. You know what I mean? So I guess overall, it's just talking, you know, just picking up the phone and just calling people, you know? And if anything, maybe like people will seriously start doing that more, you know, because a lot of people I feel didn't up until all this, you know, kind of took off. So yeah, talk.
And that's probably a good place to sort of put a pin in, is the fact that one of the biggest obstacles to effective mental health care for, you know, regardless of someone's background, is this sort of, it's the silence sort of built on stigmas, and this idea that and stigmas is just, you know, it sounds like a buzzword, but it's really just the things we don't say. It's there's a different insert reason for why we wouldn't talk about why we feel down, feel hurt, feel up, you know, feel nervous, feel anxious, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
One of our last guests tonight, we're going to really dive into a lot of those feelings when we talk with Veronica. But just from this point on, I think it's really good for folks, who are listening and watching now, and also, maybe in the days, weeks, months to come, to really sort of take to heart the idea that the power of the conversation is something that it's not just about the filling or killing time or anything like that. It's also, when we talk about our mental health, the most powerful way of recognizing signs and symptoms is through self-expression and through communication and talking. That's one of the ways that we're able to communicate it, in the same way that fever or sore throat or something like that or limping indicates physical unwellness. So it should never sound like that's just the passive thing.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because it's hard for people to say that sometimes, like, oh crap, I really did need to have that talk.
Yeah.
Had interactions like that. I know I personally had interactions with folks who I talked to them a while. We connected recently because we're all isolated and all that. And at the end of the conversation, they'll just sort of be like, we didn't talk about anything deep or grand spiritual, but they're like, holy crap, man, I was really wound up and I didn't realize that, just talking made me feel a lot better. So I think that's awesome, Aaron, and it's a really good place. Why don't you stick with us?
For sure.
We're going to be bringing on our next guest, who is also a creative musician, like yourself, from the greater Chicagoland area. And Aaron, I know you dabble in a lot of different genres. Our next guest is someone who Hope for the Day is connected with in a lot of interesting different intersections. But his name is Mr. Gidz Evans, going by Big Gidz, and we want to bring him on because we're going to be doing a little demo intro thing as he talks about sort of his platform, self-expression as well. So let's make sure we can hear the good brother and make sure we can see our good man here.
Hey, how's it going?
Great to hear from you. We're gonna have a little bit of an audience here. I don't know if I think Megan's still around.
Sure.
No, Megan's like, what up, Megan? Okay. So Gideon,
So,
we wanted to connect with you, and why don't you tell the good people what you're about real quick before we dive in?
cool. I'm Big Gidz, a rapper, producer, coffee roaster. Yeah, pretty much.
Producer, coffee roaster. I love it. And so one of the things, when we're talking about what gives us hope, one of the things we wanted to do, aside from, having talks with interesting people and different community touch points, we also wanted to sort of create a little DIY, maybe a little informative session and let people know about some things that they could jump into. And we've seen, and I personally speaking, I've seen your talent on stage, and I've seen through your social media, your sort of creative outputs. And I thought it'd be really cool if we could share with the Hope for the Day community, some of this like home cooking we got going on in the city. So, I wanted to, sort of put you on the spot.
Sure.
And sort of talk through some of beat making and just, your inspirations and how you got involved with all that. Right.
I gotcha. Man, I mean, I guess my earliest memories are hip hop music for sure. Like I think I can very clearly remember being in preschool and crisscross, make you jump. It was like my earliest memory, I think. And I grew up in a house with older brothers who always had like tapes when that was a thing, and just hearing like Wu-Tang when I think that came out when I was 6 years old, 36 Chambers, and just kind of also having parents who were into like soul and funk music, and being able to hear the use of sampling and kind of like making that connection of how you can you know take what you have available to you and and turn it into something else that speaks to you in a different way. It's with the James Brown quote, we gotta take what we got to get just what we want, or use what we got to get just what we want. And I think that for me was that's the ethos behind hip hop from the get go. Whether it's the um, using two record players to do the merry-go-round and loop a small piece of music just because that's what people are responding to the most. And building from there. I'm in a room full of records right now. And I love sampling. I guess kind of been trying to approach it a little bit differently, and uh, kind of learning more about musicality, because I've had pretty limited kind of formal training far as as far as music goes. I kind of I played the trombone a little bit in middle school, and but I think a bigger portion of it to me definitely became the exploration of sounds that are out there. So and not just getting into hip hop, but getting into the soul and funk music that influenced it, and then thinking about the connections that hip hop has to Jamaican culture and reggae music, and then the idea that punk music was coming into fruition at the same time as hip hop, and how those cultures interacted with each other and how they influenced each other's sounds ultimately. And I feel like I have definitely been influenced by the culmination of all those ideas. Um, but talking about getting into more musicality, you can kind of see this piano chord and scale chart behind me. I'm totally just learning. Like, honestly, I've hung these up less than a week ago at this point. And on top of that, let's see if I can get the video on here. Like uh I have a new sampler. Actually, for a long time I was using a Kai MPC 2000, which I think dropped in 1997. So it was kind of aging technology, and I just recently decided to upgrade. Maybe kind of not the best timing as far as financial decisions, but we make it work. Um, and um, falling into more putting more musicality in my own hands. I also have this micro Korg keyboard, which is a standard for a lot of people, but just a really awesome synthesizer with a lot of different sounds. Um, uh, so together, using the MPC-1, the new sampler, and the micro Korg, I've been trying to kind of make a little bit of different sound, but put new things together and really learn and explore um, as I'm using these instruments to do new things that I personally have never done before. So in certain ways, it was definitely good timing to have this space and time, and a thought process behind how I'm gonna use a little bit of extra time on my hands.
And I want to, one of the things I'd really love to know before we dive in a little bit of the sort of the mechanics behind some of this stuff is, and especially because this is a time where maybe a way to sort of take the negative and make a positive is to endeavor into new things. With music, it's terrifying, right? You could have a passion for it. Someone could like something about it. And I think that, there's a certain track record or a communication point of access when you're talking about maybe like, oh, rock or whatever. If it requires a guitar or piano, there's a certain level of accessibility where it's like, oh, well, you're going to suck at it and just strum till you figure something out, or piano, or drum, just bang away and you'll sort of and there's this sort of thing. And I noticed, love and hip hop as it is, there's a little bit of an intimidation about jumping in. Like, you certainly sure as hell don't want to start freestyling with other people around as your start, or maybe you're scribbling, working through beats and everything. So I'd really like to know, like, right now you're so open and candid about, like, where you are and as you're building your craftware on it, and like, what was like day one first step into this, where you're like, I'm gonna try and like do this like to a recording level, you know what I'm saying? Like, or
Oh man, that's hard to say. I guess maybe when I was 15 or so, my brother, who his friends like gave him a demo version of Reason, and I think I just, I always wanted to be kind of part of the community. So I think just from the get-go, like, just kind of clicking around on a DAW until I've found, kind of figured out patterns and saw how things worked. Um, yeah, outside of that, like, I think just you kind of, I think I probably started writing as far as lyrics go. Um, you know, from the time I was a little kid, just kind of making stuff up. But I think taking that writing and the beats thing, like, I think one really kind of had to feed into the other in order to make the other one feel worthwhile. You know what I mean? Um, but I think it's yeah. I mean, I just wanted to be part of the community, I guess. Like, and that's I think that was the jumping point. I mean, like, when I was, yeah, and from high school on, I think going to shows was a huge part of my life, and that's, where you find community and find people who are, similarly willing to, you know make themselves vulnerable in that way.
well, I think that's a great point. I guess, it's just because it's something that may be coming across as just there's no magic, there's really no magic button or magic trick for it. It's really just, if you find the interest, just I think of a quote from Adventure Time that, like, sucking is the first step to being good at something. And so
Yeah.
you're just being willing to sort of trial and error it and try it out, and that it's not like you're supposed to be. And I do really, especially because I see this more in hip hop, like, I see a bit of a gatekeeping. Like, the
Mm.
first time you try and write a lyric, the first time you play with a beat, the first time you try and even freestyle in front of somebody else
Mm.
or yourself, you are not going to be like a flowing poet,
Oh yeah.
so that's just a good piece of, like, you know, this is a great time to start chiming in. So without further ado, I believe you got a little something working up. Why don't you walk us through some of what you're
Oh,
working
sure. Yeah. Let's see.
on?
Oh
Magic.
yeah. Can we engage that other camera,
Yeah.
maybe? Let's see. All right. So, um, I was talking about just kind of learning some simple chords and scales on the microchord. Um, there we go. Uh, and like, just figuring out kind of what works. I think that's some that I've kind of like learned is just like, um sometimes mistakes actually sound kind of cool. Sometimes off time stuff sounds kind of cool. So, like, taking some raw sounds and, let's see, maybe like that. Yeah, and sampling them into the SB404, or, sorry, excuse me, the MPC1. Um,
So, like, just to play along, that black box, what is that?
yeah, so this is an MPC1. It's kind of the latest drop in the legendary MPC family from Akai. And you'll see, like, Kanye West and Jay Dilla and a lot of other legendary producers have used something in this family in order to sample and make beats. It has a cool touch sensitive drum pad, which I think is like one of the
Ah, okay, okay, okay.
yeah, one of the biggest draws. And then I can either say sample records, sample the microKORG, the keyboard, sample my voice, like
So I'm just because
yeah,
I'm gonna tell you like I'm an idiot to a lot of this stuff. So basically,
yeah,
what you is that with that box right there, you
yeah,
could take stuff from your piano right there or from
yep,
your turntables, and you can run the sound into that, and it like sort of catches like the file for you to like do stuff with.
oh yeah.
Okay,
So
okay.
let's see. So yeah, once say I have something sampled from the keyboard, I can pull it up on the MPC. Let's see, and then I can edit it. Take
Doing a little work in there, a little magic with the fingers. Okay.
take a little specific portion of it, the same sample.
So you take a little piece of the song and it looks like you edited it into, or you got a little part of it, a little sample of it.
Yeah, and something I've was noodling around with on the microKORG.
Mm. You turn that sound up a little bit.
Yeah, and so and then I could take those pieces and say make like a little loop out of them.
Oh, shit.
Maybe we could hook up some drums. Maybe just lay down a hi-hat pattern. Maybe expand this just a little two-bar loop, so I'm gonna double that up and maybe add some more samples from the chord. Yeah, let's see. I think I have a little vocal sample for myself in here.
But
And I think what I've learned over time is that sometimes you don't have to be quite exact because the little things that we see as mistakes sometimes can like be character and flavor and you doing your own thing, you know?
so cool.
Let's see. Let's make this a little funky or something. But I don't know. It's hard to get away from my kind of trappier influences that took on a little later in life. So take the same sample on this MPC and put it across all the pads. So same piece and just put it onto another sequence and just kind of change up that little organ sounding part and maybe take that full sample. Just kind of lay it across the top. Go back in between the two. Back and forth in between the two. Like change-ups are always nice. Kind of have a little pre-made magic. Let's see.
But I hate to, I don't even.
What's up?
So
What's up?
That's
having fun with it.
well, that, and it's also like I was saying, but I didn't want to talk too much over the beats, like especially with that kind of a thing. I've heard like MCs and whoever sort of like talk about the process, but like seeing the POV like stuff.
Yeah.
I think before we sort of wrap up here, like this is for you, like this clearly is something that you can really like get your head into and really put some lifeblood into it, sourcing out samples and stuff like that. And it's clear like you really have like a good touch for those kind of things. And I would really like to wonder, we have a lot of folks who in the sort of Hope for the Day audience who are maybe they're experienced musicians, but there's also a lot of younger folks and older folks who are timid about starting new things or curious and they don't know necessarily. For you, like, what's like the biggest sort of like, what does this do for you? Sort of, I was talking about the soda bottle and valves and this and the other. And like, as a connection to your mental health, do you find a connection between this and like?
Oh, most definitely. I think in general, expression is sort of like, regardless of how any kind of artistic expression is sort of a way of having like a conversation with yourself, a way to kind of access things that you don't know how to articulate otherwise. And I think also like because there is a lot to learn here and a lot more I can delve into it, it you feel like you're accomplishing something, and I think that's like such an important thing. Like especially right now. I mean, uh, I don't think it's absolutely like necessary. I think that like a lot of us need to be able to take the time to chill and decompress and not be stressed about all of these things that can easily be stressors. So I think even just taking one of those say 8-bar loops and kind of like zoning out to it is definitely like it'll I don't know, it's something pure about that um yeah, it's like honest, and I think in general music has always been like a means to community, and end up a means to a dialogue that we might not otherwise have. Like I think that there is a certain like not just commiseration but like camaraderie that automatically goes on from uh you know say taking influences from other artists that you appreciate and putting them into your own work, and or having ideas that you can like bounce off of your friends and being able to even just in the most minimal ways like inspire somebody else to take up the mantle too I mean that's like I think that's an awesome feeling, and it kind of does validate what you're doing.
Well, that's great, man. And I think that's really important for folks to hear is just, we talk a lot about self-expression and we want people to understand that, conversation is important, but these other creative endeavors are not just, they're not lightweight things. They're not just fluffy, little options to have around you and to occupy your time just to stay busy. They're things that can bring fulfillment and things that can be nourishing to our soul. And I would definitely double, triple down, hardcore, encourage folks to really, if you're curious or interested, look at this time where we're compelled to sort of be limited in what we're doing, and maybe certain activities and opportunities have been shrunken down for us. If you do have a little spark or something or curiosity about sort of endeavoring into the creative spaces, be that music, writing, painting, singing, what have you, this is a great time to trial and error and crash course. And there's there's for sure online tools that sort of copy some of the tools that Big Gidz had in his space. Sound turntables and sound pads like online and things like that. So just as we wind down this last part here, I think we're definitely gonna need to get the good homies back on for like a little flow style, a little, we could probably do like a whole set just on like music crafting with with Gidz, and I'm sure with Aaron too. So but I can't thank you enough for coming on, and sharing some of your passion with us and just
Oh
your
yeah.
inspirations. Like I'm super hyped to have you on, man. Like,
No,
as,
thanks.
yeah, dude. Like, real quick though, before we go into our last guest for the night, uh, let people know where they can. You got some music to drop or push. Like, where can people find you?
Oh, sure. I guess keep an eye on my Instagram, Big Gidz, Biggidz. Definitely have some new stuff dropping soon, but also Big Gidz on SoundCloud. You can find some stuff there. And then also check out Ladder Halves on Bandcamp. It's actually my homie Jason's uh Bandcamp, but it also has a lot of material from myself and my band Mating. you know, that's the homies. And yeah, and so also look for new stuff from all of us, you know, or new old stuff probably, but still, you know, it's coming at you. You know.
I feel you, man. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you stick on. As a side note, we'll be sure to also be highlighting and promoting out Aaron's uh, bands and projects as well. Uh, but we're going to be jumping into our next guest, our closing out the night. It's going to be a little story time in a way with our next guest is a published author and all around wonderful human being. Been a guest of the live recorded podcast of Conversations Cafe earlier on in 2019. Coming to a screen near you right now is Veronica. Wanted to make sure we can hear Veronica and see Veronica.
Okay.
So we're gonna.
Can I hear you? Let's see.
We're going to make sure we do this right and get that video going. Boom.
Start. Oh, here I am. Hi.
Hi, Veronica. How's it going?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay.
So thank you so much for joining us. And as always, wanted to just start by having you sort of just reintroduce yourself and let people know what you're all about.
Yeah, so my name is Veronica, and I'm the founder of Gentle Mentals. Ooh, there it is. It's a book first, but we also have a website, and it is aimed at destigmatizing mental illness by shining a playful light. So we take a different approach. It's not your, normal mental health sort of type of book. It'll catch you by surprise, and we take a lighter approach to normalize the conversation and get people to talk about what's ailing them so that they can get the help that they need sooner rather than later. And sorry. I'm new to this background, so it's still kind of fun. But yeah, so we have a website. There's resources where you can read more about any specific mental illnesses. There's resources to get more help. And yeah, we're constantly growing and trying to figure out what the next phase is. I personally have been taking a mental health break. I haven't created any new content in a little while. It's a big undertaking to try to do all the things all the time. So thank you for having me on board, because this kind of reinvigorates me to do more, because it's like, yes, I want to help.
Well, and I think first off, we're so excited to have you on because I just got to compliment, your Zoom background game is on point. It's, I think people might have seen the sort of viral image of that teacher who ended up as a potato. But you really sort of locked it in, and it's almost a perfect sort of transition here, because we had the wonderful opportunity to have you on our live recording of the podcast, and you were able to sort of we dove in real deep into the origin story and inspirations behind this book, and then vis-a-vis the larger process that led to the website and things like that. And we thought today would be really a great opportunity to talk about sort of engaging the content, also engaging the website in our current realities with everything going on. And it's my understanding, that background is, of course, akin to the cover of the book you just showed, but there certainly seems to be a highlight. So I think first, let's just quick elevator. What Gentle Mentals, the book, what was that? More or less.
So there's 13 characters, and they highlight some of the most common known mental illnesses out there. So there's Porter Hermit. He's right here. Ooh, here. He's not quite as common, but we love him. Depressed Dolphin. We've got Anxiety Alley here. Paranoid Puffer here. We've got OCD Otter here. Bipolar Bear. We've got ADHD, Schizo Shih Tzu, PTS Dingo, and Hypochondriac Hippo, and Tourette's Turkey. And basically, these are all characters that I know very well, either personally or through experience or family members, just people that I've come in contact with, because, you know, odds are, right now the stats in the world are 1 in 4 of us are going to live with some sort of mental illness. That's in the world. I have a few therapist friends who are like, that's just what's been recorded. There's actually way more than that, just so you know. So I'm like, okay, so everybody has something, and you're just on a spectrum, right? It just depends. So when you read the book, it usually people can relate to one or more of the characters, either for themselves or someone that they know, where they're like, oh my God, that's so-and-so, or that's so me, or I'm all of these characters. So a little bit more about the book.
That's great. And I was wondering, you know, before we go a little further, just to give a little taste of how that's conveyed, could you pick one of the characters that we'll probably talk about that topic a little bit right now? So maybe pick one of them. We're going to do a little story time. If I could ask you to read it, we'll have someone, we're going to have our magic Mike put the book up so people can see it also. But
Sure.
What's one of the characters you'd like to read about right now that you
I
find?
mean, so one of the ones that for me have been popping up is Paranoid Puffer is been coming up for me lately.
So we're going to, folks will be able to follow along. We're going to do a little bit of a story time here if you want to read.
Yeah.
Paranoid, there he goes.
I'm looking for it. There it is.
Get it right up there, Mike. I wouldn't say that to Mike.
Are you gonna put it up?
Oh, do you want me to put it up?
I don't know. Veronica, you read it. Mike will just put it up on.
Okay.
So we'll all be following along.
So Paranoid Puffer is skittish and scared. They're all out to get me. They hate me, I swear. So in this current situation, I have been hyper paranoid. I haven't been out of my house in I don't know how many days. It's been 20 something and counting since they kind of put us on lockdown. So I've been really nervous, and definitely he's been popping up.
Totally.
You know, just trying to just be safe. I know I have cousins and relatives at different parts of the world that have been affected, and we're just watching from a distance and hearing the stories of, you know, them coming out of it, which is actually very hopeful. So having had it and then actually coming out of it and feeling better, and so that's like a positive spin. So I know that's not the reality for a lot of people. So but definitely.
I think it's an adorable animal, and he's not always puffed up, right? You know?
No, he's got underpants and underwater.
I think that's important as a thing to talk about here is that there's, again, going back to the soda bottle and building up pressure, whether you have a clinical diagnosis before all of this virus stuff or not, we're all experiencing a mental health challenge right now. And I mean, paranoia, you know, you could have been living with something where that's a feature of a diagnosis, but I'll speak for myself. I don't go anywhere. I'm probably gonna have to be more vigilant with masks, but like hand sanitizer and things, and like everything I touch. And I found that it can be a little bit, paralyzing sometimes. And I'd ask our other guests here, raise your hand. And, if you're watching this at home or wherever, like raise your hand if you've ever felt a little bit paranoid or intense, sort of creep up on you recently, right? Right. And so I think that's really important. And I'm glad you bring that up, Veronica, because it's so important that if we don't even talk about it, that's going to create even more undue pressure than it already is going to cause. Being afraid or being afraid to admit it, being afraid to acknowledge it, does not help improve or potentially improve. And I would wonder, so uh, what other characters there do you think sort of, are really sort of are pertinent now for you?
So OCD Otter. OCD Otter is one that's been popping up for me as well. And so OCD Otter, stop washing your hands. I can't be too careful. Ebola expands. So this was written back when Ebola was the biggest thing ever. And now we all know what the biggest thing is. And so, and now it's, please wash your hands. You know, OCD Otter can wash your hands as much as you want. It's okay to wash your hands a lot, you know?
Do you find, and I think that's an interesting sort of nuance to this, is that, okay, for OCD and, obsessive compulsive disorder can manifest in a lot of different ways. Not too many, and not all of them are visible or physical actions, right? They can be thought processes. But okay, what if I have OCD and it manifests in that sort of a thing? Does that mean, what is that from your perspective? How am I confronting the fact that now this thing that I find being problematic for managing my life is now being regimented as like a normal thing? Is there an like a silver lining, or is it kind of like I still need to focus on my own reality?
I really don't know the answer to that because, I actually have written some posts that I haven't had a chance to design, but they're all around that. It's like, please wash your hands. And it's okay. For me, OCD pops up as like, I work like crazy. My coping mechanism is to dive in and do more work. And my husband has been trying to stop me. And he's just like, okay, you have to stop now. Like, you're done. You're done for the day. You can't do anymore. Because I work in the creative field, demands are high.
I feel that so hard.
Right. And you just have to keep going, and you have so much to do. And then you've got your side projects that you feel guilty if you don't work on them. And so that's how it manifests for me, not in washing my hands. But in this time, after writing that section, please wash your hands.
What I love about this illustration is the little details too. You got the tally marks, you got the little counting on the bottom and the top. It's all so wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Does anyone from our guests, does anyone sort of feel a connection to experiences with OCD, or sort of that sort of finding themselves in a neo-compulsion? You may not have had a clinical diagnosis for it before, but why I would ask sort of out loud is sometimes, especially in this isolation experience, for people who are living, were living with some sort of diagnosis prior to it, they may be confronted like in a mirror, maybe put even closer up to them, because it's a real sort of check level in, and you're kind of alone with your thoughts in a way, even if you've got others around you. So I think being sensitive to that reality is also a part of the conversation and communication point. It's not just about the outward speaking, even just confronting your own realities, that while everyone is being told, wash your hands a lot, and it's being positively affirmed, that does not discredit or invalidate if you happen to find it a problematic component of your overall balance and experience, something that you're trying to engineer away from. And so I think that's just another example of a great way to sort of breach these conversations, and using literature creates such a safe avenue. The koala, if I may ask, again, the name escapes me right now.
For OCD, this guy?
Oh no, not the otter. I'm thinking about some of the other characters you've got there.
We've got Anxiety Alley.
You know what? I messed up. I forget. Yeah, but Anxiety Alley was, I thought, another one that's hyper relevant.
Oh, hypochondriac hippo. He's not in the room, but yes, that one too.
They're all pretty relevant.
They're all relevant right now. I have so many like written posts that I just haven't had time to actualize, but I feel like everything's popping up right now. Everything, where it's just like,
Carl, I can read them down for you if you want, man. Anxiety Alley.
Yeah, I wanted to just review Allie.
Okay, cool.
Ellie? Okay, we'll go to Allie. So Anxiety Alley can't catch any sleep. At this point, I just want to murder those sheep. So he's trying to count those sheep. They won't go away. So he's just at his wit's end and just wants to punch them out.
And I think it should be pretty gosh darn obvious why I would want to, as we're going to be winding down a little bit, just focus on Anxiety Alley and just the concept of anxiety, because maybe a big thing with mental health, as we all understand, is that because there's so much stigma, and stigma simplified as a definition is just the things that make us feel like there's things we can't say, what keeps us from saying stuff. People might think of a word like OCD, might think of a word like paranoia, and think that that's too intense or too high of a scale, because stigma creates the false illusion that like mental health is on some sort of hierarchy and there's more important and less important. But I do believe that people would be willing to qualify their experiences under anxiety. I think that might be an accessible word for people, whether you were living with a diagnosis that formally has anxiety as a feature, or you've never ever had any sort of intersection, professional intersection with mental health. I would love to know from your standpoint how you would sort of describe anxiety, Veronica.
It's just uncomfortable. You feel uncomfortable. I feel like I have a lot of coping mechanisms which help me to not go too far into that realm. So I feel like I'm lucky that way, and not everybody is. But yeah, I just feel like it's just it's almost, I feel like at its worst moments, it's just panic. You're just like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? Everything feels very small and tight, and you feel like there's nowhere to go, and like you can't even describe it. But I feel like I have a lot of tools that have helped me throughout my life to kind of just maneuver with that. And like, again, I too am in the creative field. So I dive into that. I dive into audiobooks. I've taken up learning a new language, which is kind of a weird one, but it was a bucket list thing I wanted to do. And so really it's about reframing things right now, and kind of that wish list of like, I wish I had time to do fill in the blank, right? Now's that time. Now's that time to figure that out. Like learning those new chords or whatever. You mentioned it was a maybe a weird time financially to buy that new musical instrument, but maybe it was perfect time, because we actually have extra moments right now that we haven't had in a long time. It's like the best time to connect with people. I've never had as many phone calls, video calls with so many people since this current state of affairs. It's been bananas. I've never experienced that before. I'm very typically pretty isolated. I go to my job, I have my social interaction, I come home. But now, like, everyone's popping up. They want to chat, and they want to, it's super cool. So,
what was the language you're journaling?
What's that?
What was
Portuguese.
Oh,
Cool.
I don't know any Portuguese.
I know a couple at work. It's just one of those languages. I lived in Miami for a few years, which is like the mecca of all Latin cultures. I'm Mexican, but Portuguese just sounds so beautiful, and you hear it in music, and it's just like, what are they saying? So Duolingo, it's a free app. You could just,
yeah.
it's like a game. They gamify it. And it's super fun. 15 minutes a day. Do some, I pace while I'm learning because I don't move enough right now. So I'm trying to get my movement in, which sounds a little nutty to be pacing, but like I'm not going outside. So we have a decent walkway. So I just kind of learn while I do my steps.
That's perfect.
Yeah, I still track my steps to try to get them in.
So I think, and that's, we were so hyped to have you on, because much like our other guests, again, we want folks to be able to engage in different sort of intersections with the current realities, but also hear from different voices. And I would really like to know, what do you think is, how can people who are listening and watching right now sort of engage with Gentle Mentals, get a hold of a book or, go online? How do you think it can be impactful for folks right now?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to the website, gentlementals.com. We have an Instagram account. It's @gentlementals. And what's really unfortunate about the current situation, I work at an advertising agency called Havas. They're amazing and super supportive. And we were going to do a pop-up installation for Mental Health Month, which is in May. But that's not happening right now. And so hopefully that'll happen in October. So that would have been a way to interact, but just know it's coming in October. We have a short film, a 2-minute animated short. You can watch it if you Google it on either YouTube or Vimeo. You can watch it there. Yeah, and I mean, hopefully I can get back into the social posts because I feel like people appreciate waking up to like a friendly message from us. And so that's kind of the next thing, I think, is to try to dig back in.
Carl, can I add one more thing about the book?
Yes.
All right, so on the last page, there's this little dormitory of all the Gentle Mentals creatures. It's called the Hippocampus.
Get it?
Finally, this last message I'd like to read to you. It says, "This colorful cast is familiar. It's true. Could it possibly be that it's me and it's you?" I think that's just so beautiful. And I think people should go get your book and go watch your short film and do whatever they can to, cheer for more.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think with that, that's probably a perfect way to sort of wind down this episode. I want to hear a few closing notes from all of our guests. And Veronica, why don't you kick things off for us? You talked about something, you're learning a new language. And so the way I would want to close out tonight is if a big question that I kind of want to put forward and assert and have brought to our friends offline and things like that is that there will be a normal again, but it's going to be a new normal. It's going to be a new reality because this is we're impacted in ways that, will change us and have changed us. So I'd like to, for everyone's closing words tonight, I'd like to know what's one thing that you'd like to leave in the old normal and what's one thing you'd like to see in the new normal? Whatever that is, or something you'd like to bring about yourself into the new normal.
Yeah, I think the whole connecting with people is a great thing. And I think it's left me hopeful, just watching everyone basically come together and try to help each other and connect. Like people are doing the live streams of music, and I think more of that. Like that's great. Like there's so many people putting themselves out there to connect. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think hopefully it stays.
Thank you so much. And Veronica, thank you so much. Gentle Mentals, you can get the book online at gentlementals.com and check out the site as well. We'll be unmuting and going to Mr. Big Gidz. What you got for us?
Oh man, what I'm gonna carry into the new normal. I think I mean, yeah, Veronica talked about connectedness and I think also just this you know, spirit of exploration and um you know, curiosity, that in the way that um that vibe like really does, you know, elevate you, and you know, being able to um share that, you know, and elevate people around you through, you know, encouraging exploration and just sharing what I figure out, you know.
Perfect, man. Thank you so much, kids. Appreciate you coming
Yeah,
on.
thank you, Carl.
Mr. Coleman. You are not Mr. Coleman. Mr. Coleman.
That's not right.
I think I'm Mr. Coleman, right?
I think you are.
Yeah, cool. Me, new normal? What am I doing, or what do I plan to do, or whatever? Is that what
Yeah.
you're saying? I think what I'm gonna leave behind is the maybe the laziness, maybe, if you will, or the I'll do it later, or I'll do it next week, or next month, or maybe next summer. You know what I mean? I think going into this new normal, for me, it's going to be a lot more of, hey, I'm going to go do that, because I don't know if I'll ever be able to do this again. You know, it's almost like having like a second chance or whatever at life, or, you know, if that makes any sense. So I think in this new normal, I'll probably start being, you know, more of a yes man or whatever, you know, like, yeah, you know what? I am going to go do this today. Or, you know what? I am going to just hop in a car and drive out to Minnesota and check out Paisley Park, you know, like, just like things like that, you know? So I think I'm just going to try and just do more, you know, in the new normal, you know?
Don't hate me for saying it, but the thing that ran through my head was you bringing YOLO back, but I don't want
No, man.
to do that.
Nah, son.
And I'm ashamed of myself for even saying it.
Yeah.
Megan.
So what I hope we leave as part of the old normal, and I hope that we can do this as a city and as a country, and that we demand this, and I might tear up a little bit, is just how shitty our health disparities are, and how clear it is to see the lack of resources being shared with people. It's been extremely hard to see that as a provider, but it's been something that I've been aware of, and it's just I hope that we can take note of this and get on it, and change the way that we're treating all of us humans. And that's based, a little footnote in case you don't know what I'm talking about, that's based on the shocking statistics of how much this virus is affecting people of color, specifically in Chicago, but all across the country. There's just a lot of media about it here, and it's not new. It's bringing attention to it. And then something I'd really like to see in the new normal is just like a continued willingness to share, whether that's money or time or bed sheets, or, you know, whatever someone needs that you have that you can give up, just like realizing how little we need and how much we have. And that's certainly not speaking for everyone. I should say how much I have and how little we actually need. And I've also learned that even though like maybe I'm veering on the like overcommitment and doing too much, that my husband is also struggling with, like Veronica mentioned, just that I'm like a really good organizer, and that I've been able to bring a lot of people together for this and have a bigger impact on some things that that I couldn't have done alone, and that I'm willing to ask for that help from people. And it's just amazing like what you can get done when you ask for people to come together and do something together.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Megan. Powerful words. And we're going to be closing out with a short video. Magic Mike, if you got a few quick words in there.
Yeah, I mean, as far as what I don't want to take forward with me, well, I think it's been really great to reconnect with a bunch of my family. I got a real big family, and the Zoom calls are chaotic, and you know, there's everybody's talking and it's overstimulating, but I fucking love it, and it's been so nice to see everybody's faces with a little more frequency. So I'm gonna echo all the connection pieces. I want to continue to. I've always been good about calling people and stuff like that, but it's just nice to see other people really craving that belonging and you know, that connection, even if it's through a screen right now. And then going forward from this, I want to be able to continue to cook like I have been, and like doing it very deliberately and consciously, and putting that love into the meal, and maybe doing a little something extra fancy with my plating or whatever, or something fancy with my coffee in the morning, something like that, instead of I was maybe being a little too busy and running out the door with the string cheese, scarfing it down, and really not thinking about my food and that deliberate kind of thought that goes with it. So that's what I would probably go with, bringing forward with me.
Thank you so much, Mike. And we're gonna close out right there. I think this has been a fantastic episode for Conversations Cafe, understanding that, you know, when we talk about mental health, we're never going to get all of it in one bite. And we like to do these as just sort of capturing different parts of the discussion. And I can't thank all of you enough for joining us. Conversations Cafe is brought to the public with the kind support of Banyan Treatment Centers, Jensen, and American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, AFSP. We enjoy production support from Anthologies of Hope, Rick Osowski, and this program can't happen without that good homie Magic Mike and Vicky Cisnet, our creative director at Hope for the Day.
Wait.
And once again, I want to thank all of our guests, Megan, Gidz, Aaron, Veronica. You're phenomenal. I want to thank all of you for tuning in, watching either right now or in days, months, and futures past. And it's important for everyone to understand that as we face our current realities, this is a time for us to embrace not just that it's okay not to be okay, which is the truth, and we need to speak about the things that challenge us. This is also an opportunity to find hope and turn negatives into positives, and we hope that we've been able to do a little bit for you tonight with that. The big goal here, and it was a word that was brought through a lot of our different individual conversations with these unique guests, is the fact that one of the most powerful things we can all do as individuals is find ways to connect with each other, because connection builds hope. And that's just the reality, you know, that hope does have the ability to travel faster than fear in a lot of ways. So if you can find one way to connect with others and find a way, whether that's through supporting with charitable actions or making a phone call or be more mindful and having a meal with the people who you're currently residing with, that's a way to keep it going. So I can't thank everyone enough for joining us tonight. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Stay safe. And we're just going to be closing out on this video. So good night, everybody.
Peace.
Boa noche.
Take us away, Mike.
Here we go. Oh, come on. Did that thing again.
Mental health, like physical health, is something we all have. When we talk about mental health, it's usually about depression, anxiety, and thoughts of suicide. But what's not said is that it affects us all. Think of our mind like a bottle of soda. Life shakes us up. And inside, the pressure builds. That pressure is looking for somewhere to go. And if we don't release it, it grows. It grows to the point where we can't enjoy the things we used to, we can't leave the house, or even get out of bed. You have to find moments to open up and release it. It can be as small as sitting still and taking a deep breath. When we talk to each other about what's bothering us, the cap comes off and pressure releases. Forget the stigma. All of us need to talk about our mental health. Start the conversation with hope for the day. We are in this together.